a big name and a big contract to go with it. Bill Belichick is now head football coach at UNC-Chapel Hill. Welcome to the WRAL Daily Download. I'm Megan Glova. The UNC Board of Trustees approved his contract Thursday morning. Been quite the week of waiting for Tar Heels fans and our team, including WRAL Sports' Luis Fernandez, who joins us now with these very exciting details. Hey, Luis.
Hey, Megan, how are you?
Great. So let's begin with some contract specifics. How long is it? And, of course, for how much?
5 years is the term, $10 million a year, so $50 million in total. That's for the base and supplementary contract. So that doesn't include like bonuses and things like that. One interesting note, though, is that only the first 3 years are guaranteed. So for all intents and purposes, this is a 3-year contract,
Gotcha.
But 5 years in total. It's going to be one of those things where it's like, hey, check back in a few years and let's see where things are.
Right. And how does that compare to Mac Brown's?
Mac Brown's was less. I believe the number was $5 million. So this Bill Belichick contract, in the grand scheme of things, is tied for 6th highest college football coach's salary in the country.
Wow.
And it's tied for 6th with folks like Mike Norvell at Florida State, Kalen DeBoer at Alabama. The names and schools that are in front of this from a contract perspective are like the Georgias, Ohio States, Texas, like those large schools.
Big schools,
exactly.
Yeah. And again, big name, big contract, so that makes sense. With that being said, can we dive into Belichick's background? What makes him such a legendary NFL coach?
Sure. So if you grew up watching the NFL or watched the NFL in any way, shape, or form in the 2000s and the aughts in the 2010s, you know the New England Patriots dynasty.
Of course.
Tom Brady, all the Super Bowls. Bill Belichick was the guy in charge. He was the head coach for the New England Patriots for about 24 seasons, I believe. And he has just about every record you could ask for. He's got 6 Super Bowls as a head coach, more as an assistant coach. Those Super Bowls are the most for any head coach in NFL history. He has 333 career wins, which is second most all time, behind only Miami Dolphins legend Don Shula. And then he has 31 playoff wins, which is the most amount of playoff wins for an NFL head coach. So the amount of success that they had in New England with him as the head coach is a second to just about none.
Yeah, quite the resume there. And what would you say is the biggest difference between coaching and recruiting in the NFL versus at a university? Don't quote me on this, but I thought at one point Thursday during Belichick's press conference that he mentioned it's a little bit simpler in the NFL because, these guys, that's their whole job.
Right.
Versus students have to balance the sport versus their school time.
Absolutely. And this is a question that's kind of, the answer to this question has changed a lot over the past few years. Because before in college, it was primarily you're worried about the recruiting aspect of things, right? Having to bring in, 20 some odd students over the course of, a year, trying to get those, high quality 5 stars, all those types of things. Now in the modern era of college football, you are essentially dealing with free agency 24/7, 365. The transfer portal windows open up and players can come and they can go. You have NIL deals, people getting name, image, and likeness monies, for commercials, for example, that they may do, advertising they may do. You have the collectives. And coming up here later this year, you're going to have revenue sharing with players. So all of a sudden in the NFL, when you're dealing with, contracts that will last anywhere from, a year to multiple years, with the big stars, you're dealing with like, hey, I have to make sure that I'm doing what I can to keep my top quarterback here instead of having them leave the transfer portal and go somewhere else. So it is a lot more balancing roles. One thing with Belichick I will add is he was not only the head coach with the Patriots, he was also the general manager for a majority of it, the de facto general manager. So he has this experience, and part of what he talked about today was bringing in the right personnel to help with that process. He's already hired a general manager to help him out, for example.
Okay. And let's talk kind of big picture. What do you think Belichick is going to bring to the team, and specifically anything that Mac Brown might have lacked?
Well, it's kind of an embarrassment of riches for UNC, really, because they're going from a college football Hall of Famer in Mac Brown, one of the only coaches who, before he was fired, they had a national championship. He won a national championship at Texas to now a 6-time Super Bowl champion. What will the differences be? That's a good question. I think some of it kind of comes down to the professional background that Belichick has. Not to say that things weren't professional with Mac Brown. Like I've mentioned these things like general managers. Like UNC has had that in the past. They have that stuff, but it's more of like the I guess the disciplinary side of things is what I'm going to be interested in. Like Belichick is known as a no nonsense type dude. The Patriot way, do your job, no days off. Like that is who Belichick is. That is kind of the culture that he builds. So now I'm curious, how does that translate to UNC and everything they're going to try and do there? So ultimately, though, it's college football is changing so much, and you have to kind of get with the times of it. And I think this is UNC trying to get with the times of it.
All right. And this question might be redundant, but what has UNC been missing this season or longer that Belichick might have to focus on coming into this new role?
That's a good question. So it's tough, right? Because UNC this year was 6-6, but they were a very kind of interesting 6-6 where they let James Madison, no offense to James Madison, score 70 points on them at home. They have lost 4 games in a row to bitter rival NC State. They had a 20-point lead against Duke and lost to Duke. So some of it, I think, is just going to be like a disciplinary side of things, like that kind of focus. And that's more, I think, culture in some way. You have to build that throughout the course of the year, throughout the course of the offseason. I think it was time for UNC to make a change when they let go of Mac Brown. His place in the program is unquestioned, but it was time. And so now I think it's going to be changing the foundation of what UNC football has had to deal with, whether that's the talent level that comes in, and Belichick will attract people in the transfer portal.
Sure.
Absolutely. Or just kind of like that cultural foundation of, to use coaching buzzwords, to build a program that is going to not make these big mistakes in key moments, that is disciplined, that comes together, that plays good defense. Please play good defense. You know what I mean? Like that is there's going to be a lot that they have to change. The timeline of how long it takes will be interesting.
Right. Going to be very fun to see in the next couple of months. When we come back, hear what Belichick had to say to the press at his introduction on Thursday. Welcome back. Bill Belichick has been named head football coach at UNC-Chapel Hill. Again, that contract was approved on Thursday. We also heard from Belichick for the first time at a press conference that same day. Take a listen.
I grew up in college football with my dad. As a coach at Navy for 50 years, so as a kid, all I knew was college football, and so it's great to come back home to Carolina, and back in an environment that I really grew up in.
So, Lewis, what were your takeaways from that press conference, and how are fans reacting to their new coach so far?
I think people are pretty excited. This is a national sports story. This is the sports story of the day, of the week. I think that my reactions to the press conference are, Bill Belichick is committed to what he's doing here at UNC. He made that pretty clear. How long that commitment lasts, I think that is up for debate. But he's committed. He said, hey, he didn't come here just to leave. I think that he has a genuine passion for college football and for UNC, at least the way he talked about it. His dad was an assistant coach for the Tar Heels for, I believe, 2 or 3 seasons in the mid-'50s. And so when he was a small child, not young enough, not old enough to remember any of it.
Oh, yeah, but we've seen the pictures.
We've seen the pictures, exactly. Him hanging out on like the stands, and it's black and white. It's an older picture. But he has that passion for this university, for this area. He talked about wanting to come back, when he would have to do scouting trips as a head coach and things like that. So, I think Bill Belichick is a historian of football, and I think he has respect for what UNC football has done in the past. So, my main takeaway was he is genuine about wanting to do that. I think there are still some bigger questions to ask about, like I said, how long it lasts, what success is, how it all comes together. But he was pretty passionate about what he was doing there on even emotional in some ways on Thursday.
And you don't have to go verbatim on this, but did he give any reasons as to why he took this job, especially in his 70s?
So I think the way he phrased it was, and it was, we'll give credit, Chip Alexander from the News and Observer asked the question. He said, Bill, we're about the same age. He's also in his 70s. He said, we're about the same age. Why are you doing this, man? Your legacy is cemented. You don't have to do this.
Mm-hmm.
Why are you doing this? And he said, he said, I love to work. I love to work, and it's not work when you love what you're doing. And so he doesn't really feel like he's like getting a chance to go out here and work. He just loves coaching. I think that matters. I think making $10 million also helps with that. Yes, I do.
A little enticing.
A little bit, yeah. But I think he's just genuinely passionate about the sport of football and coaching. I think that kind of plays into it. He did mention that UNC in particular becoming available was important to him. I also, I think part of it too is this past year when he was not coaching in the NFL, he didn't really have many opportunities. There were reports of different interviews that he did, whether it be with the Falcons or other organizations, and, he wasn't hired. So at a certain point, you kind of have to decide, what do you want to do? And I'm sure with a year of kind of hanging out, he kind of assesses his priorities and ultimately kind of all mashed together.
And were you, from someone who's just very in tune in the sports world, did it surprise you when these rumors started floating around about Belichick, or was it not too surprising?
I did not believe it for 1 second. For 1 second. When these rumors first started coming up, beginning of December, sometimes you hear weird names floated out there that you just were like, interesting. Okay. And this was one of those opportunities. My thought was, sure, he likes the college game. Oh, his dad was here for 2 years. That's fun. He's probably just trying to keep his interview chops fresh and ready and show that he's available to go find another job.
Right.
But then when you start to, get the different reports coming out that, hey, this is serious, different reports from national folks, from our folks here, Pat Walter and Brian Murphy at WRAL, that this is legit, you're like, oh, okay,
and
sure.
Meetings are happening,
and interviews are happening,
yeah.
and it's legitimate, and that just it's still, even to this moment, I think, seeing Bill Belichick walk around in Carolina blue with a tie from Julian's probably, doing this press conference next to Bubba Cunningham, who's ripped his sleeves off of his suit jacket to honor the hoodie that is Bill Belichick. It all feels a little surreal, but it's official. The contract is signed.
Yeah.
Bill Belichick's the new head coach of the North Carolina Tar Heels.
Right. Gonna take some getting used to.
Yeah.
Well, we're gonna round it out here. I'm just curious, do you have high hopes for the new coach?
So I don't. It's weird, right? Because there's really. I can't look at Bill Belichick and say, oh, yeah, X, Y, and Z, yeah, he's going to win X number of games.
Yeah.
He has 0 college experience. He has not coached college football.
Right.
However, being a good coach is something that is transferable.
It's got to get you somewhere.
It's got to get you somewhere. Part of what intrigues me the most about this Belichick situation is the investment of football that UNC has made. I think that it would be – I don't think it would be fair to say UNC has not cared about football. But, the amount of money, in particular in the modern era, that has to be invested, it is a high amount.
Mm-hmm.
And so you're seeing them make that investment from a coaching salary perspective, from the amount of money he is allowed to spend on additional coaches, from the resources that will be available to them, this treating it like a pro atmosphere. You don't hire a coach and his salary is comparable to people at Georgia and Texas and Alabama and Ohio State without the intention of having a lot of success. Now, how will that success come? I will say this. UNC's schedule next season, on paper, not hard.
All right.
Not difficult. I would not be shocked if Bill Belichick performed well early on, but it's still so early to see. I think I saw the line for wins set at 6.5, which is very, very UNC. Is UNC going to win a national championship in 2025? Please pump your brakes. Please pump your brakes. I think for now, the goal for Carolina has to be getting to an ACC title game and trying to win it. They haven't won an ACC title game since 1980. So you set the bar there and see where Belichick and co. go.
All right. UNC is a basketball school. We'll see if they can be a football school, too. Lewis, thanks so much. And thank you for listening to the WRAL Daily Download. You can find more podcasts from WRAL News at WRAL.com. Search podcast. From sports to true crime, there are plenty of shows to keep you informed and entertained. Thanks for listening. We'll see you next time.